Some breaking news coming into the Situation Room right now, and the investigation into former President Trump's efforts to get Georgia state officials to overturn his election defeat in that state. CNN political correspondent Sarah Murray's got details for us. Sarah, I understand there's a new recording of a Trump phone call to a top Georgia state official. What can you tell us?
That's right. Well, obviously, we're all familiar at this point with the call the former president made to the Georgia Secretary of State. But there was another call that he made to a chief investigator in that office. This was just before Christmas last year, where he's essentially pushing her to find problems with the votes. He's insisting that he won and saying that she will be praised if she just finds the right answer in all of this.
What's up? Adam is here. So this is happening right now. Trump just made an actual confession, not a misquote, not a stretch, a real admission that blows holes in years of denials and his entire legal defense strategy. He said the quiet part out loud, on purpose, the way he always does when he just starts talking. He probably doesn't realize what he handed prosecutors. His lawyers do.
Here's a snippet of this call, the audio of which was obtained by the Wall Street Journal.
And you can't let it happen, and you are letting it happen. I'm notifying you that you're letting it happen. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have. So tell me, Brad, what are we going to do? We won the election, and it's not fair to take it away from us like this.
Let me take you inside exactly what happened because the details here are everything. Trump was doing what Trump always does, talking in circles, rambling from one topic to the next. No filter, no strategy, just pure stream of consciousness. And then he said something that should have never left his mouth.
He does. You get a sense from this call that even there in the run-up to Christmas, this January 6th date is on his mind. Here's what he has to say about that in the call.
Do you think they'll be working after Christmas and keep it going fast? Because, we have that date of the 6th, which is a very important date.
Right. I know you've got that coming up, and I can assure you that I'm going to be working, and we're going to be working, and it's
Good.
He admitted that his entire push to overturn the election results in Georgia was driven by his own ego, his own words. He said he needed to win for himself, not for America, not for the country, not for any grand principle about election integrity or voter fraud, for his ego. That is the kind of admission that makes defense attorneys physically ill. Because for years, his legal team has been building arguments around the idea that Trump genuinely believed the election was stolen.
MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell continues to claim he has evidence that China hacked U.S. voting systems and switched votes for the former president to Biden votes. In a moment, you'll hear what 24 election officials and cyber experts contacted by CNN say about those claims. Lindell is not backing down even as he faces a lawsuit from voting machine maker Dominion alleging he's defamed the company with his false accusations, and Lindell's company is countersuing. CNN's Drew Griffin went to Minnesota to talk to Lindell about his claims that threaten democracy. Here's Drew's report.
The MyPillow guy.
Mike Lindell, yes, the MyPillow guy is convinced. China hacked the election, Donald Trump really won, and Lindell has the absolute proof.
They did it in all the states, every single state.
They changed the votes.
Every single state.
And you have the proof.
Yes. That
will show
I have the whole data.
The actual exchange of votes.
Yep, 100%. 100%.
That his actions were based on a sincere, if mistaken, belief in widespread fraud. That is their shield. That is their entire defense. And Trump just picked up that shield and threw it into a wood chipper live on camera. Think about what this means for his pending cases. In multiple jurisdictions, prosecutors have been building conspiracy and fraud cases that hinge on proving Trump knew he was lying about the election. His defense has always been good faith. He really thought something was wrong. He was acting on advice. He was fighting for his voters. But now he has admitted on the record that his motivation was not about election integrity at all. It was about him. It was about his inability to accept defeat. It was about his ego refusing to let him come in second place. That is not a good faith belief in fraud. That is a narcissistic injury dressed up as a political movement. And any half-competent prosecutor is going to play that clip in front of a jury and ask one simple question. If this was really about protecting democracy, why did he say it was about his ego? Good luck explaining that one away, but wait, it gets worse, because the election confession is not the only thing blowing up right now. Trump's own people are turning on him in ways that are almost impossible to spin. His former chief of staff recently sat down for an interview and casually described Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein as that of young, single playboys together. Let that phrase land. Young, single, playboys together. That is a direct quote from someone who worked inside Trump's inner circle, someone who knows exactly what the relationship looked like because she saw it up close, and what she is describing is not a casual acquaintance. It is not two guys who happen to be at the same parties a few times. It is an active social dynamic. It is a friendship. It is a relationship that Trump has spent years downplaying and denying. He has told us over and over that he barely knew Epstein, that they had a passing connection, that it was nothing serious. And now his own former chief of staff is out here basically saying, yeah, they were buddies. They ran together. They were part of the same scene where Epstein was recruiting and trafficking young girls, the same scene that has been exposed as one of the darkest criminal enterprises in modern American history. Now let me be extremely clear about what this means. No one is saying that Trump's former chief of staff accused him of a crime. She did not. She described a relationship. But that description directly contradicts what Trump has been saying publicly for years. And in the world of legal accountability, contradictions matter. They matter a lot. Because when a defendant tells the public one thing and his own staff tells the media something completely different, juries notice. Judges notice. The court of public opinion definitely notices. And with the Epstein files slowly trickling out, with more documents being released every month, every new piece of information makes that contradiction more glaring. If Trump barely knew Epstein, why did his own chief of staff describe them as playboys together? If Trump was not part of that world, why are his own people using language that places him right in the middle of it? The math does not add up. And the more information comes out, the worse the math gets. Here is where the cover-up angle becomes impossible to ignore. This is not just about one confession or one contradictory statement. This is about a pattern that has been building for years, decades even. Trump has spent his entire public life saying things that later turn out to be false, denying things that later turn out to be true, building elaborate defenses that later collapse under their own weight. And the cumulative effect of all of that is what we are watching right now. The election lie, the Epstein downplaying, the constant stream of half-truths and misdirections. It is all cracking open at the same time. And the reason it is cracking open is because Trump himself cannot stop talking. He cannot stop confessing. Every time he opens his mouth, he hands his opponents another piece of ammunition. Every rambling speech, every off-the-cuff interview, every unscripted moment is a potential disaster for his legal team. And they know it. They have to know it. But what can they do? They cannot put tape over his mouth. They cannot stop him from being himself. So they just watch helplessly as their client burns down their own defense strategy in real time. Now let me address the skeptics because I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking that this is just more media hype, that these clips are taken out of context, that commentators are exaggerating what Trump actually said. And look, I am not going to sit here and pretend that every single viral clip is perfectly accurate. They are not. Some of them are stretched. Some of them are framed in ways that make things sound worse than they actually are. That is the nature of the internet. That is how the content game works. But here is the difference between a manufactured scandal and a real one. A real confession holds up when you actually read the transcript. A real admission does not disappear when you add the context. And when you go back and actually watch what Trump said, when you read the full quote instead of the 10-second clip, the core admission is still there. He said he needed to win for his ego. Those are his words. That is not a distortion. That is not an edit. That is the former president of the United States admitting on the record that his post-election crusade was driven by personal vanity rather than public principle. You cannot spin that. You cannot explain it away. It is right there in black and white. And the Epstein stuff? The former chief of staff quote is on the record. She said what she said. There is no taking it back. There is no context that makes young single playboys together mean something completely different. That phrase means exactly what it sounds like it means. Trump and Epstein were part of the same social circle. They hung out, they were friendly. They were, by the description of someone who worked for Trump, playboys together. That directly contradicts everything Trump has said about the relationship being minimal and meaningless. And the more Epstein documents get released, the more that contradiction is going to haunt him. Because every new file, every newly unsealed deposition, every newly released email is going to be read through the lens of that admission. If his own people are confirming the relationship was real, what else are they going to confirm? What else is sitting in those 2.5 million pages that have not been released yet? Let me walk you through the 3 specific confessions that are causing the most damage right now, because understanding each one separately helps you see how they fit together into a larger pattern. The first confession is the Georgia election admission. This is the most legally significant one because it directly undercuts Trump's good faith defense. For years, his lawyers have argued that he genuinely believed the election was stolen. That belief, they claim, justified his efforts to challenge the results. It is a classic mistake of fact defense. I thought something was true, so my actions based on that belief were not criminal. But Trump just admitted that his motivation was not about belief at all. It was about ego. It was about not wanting to lose. That is not a good faith mistake. That is a deliberate choice to manufacture a narrative because the truth was too painful for him to accept. And once that admission is in evidence, the entire good faith defense collapses like a house of cards. The second confession is the Epstein relationship admission, except this one did not even come from Trump himself. It came from his own former chief of staff. And that is actually more damaging in some ways because it is harder to dismiss as Trump just being Trump. This is a senior official who worked closely with him. Someone who has no obvious reason to lie about the nature of his relationship with Epstein. She described them as young single playboys together. That language places Trump directly in Epstein's world. It confirms that the relationship was closer and more personal than Trump has ever admitted. And with the Epstein files still being litigated, still being released in pieces, that admission becomes a key piece of evidence. It tells investigators where to look. It tells journalists what questions to ask. It tells the public that Trump has not been honest about this chapter of his life. And dishonesty about one thing tends to create skepticism about everything else. The third confession is broader and more philosophical, but it matters just as much. In multiple speeches and interviews, Trump has made comments that reveal his true feelings about governance and the people he is supposed to serve. He has talked about waste and bias in ways that commentators are now pointing out are actually admissions that his policies hurt ordinary Americans. He uses rhetoric about efficiency and fighting corruption to justify decisions that are fundamentally cruel. And when you listen closely, you can hear him admitting that he knows exactly what he is doing. He knows the policies hurt people. He just does not care because he has built a rhetorical framework that lets him claim he is fighting for something noble. That is a confession of a different kind. It is an admission that the rhetoric is a cover, that the populist language is a mask, that underneath all the talk about draining swamps and fighting elites is a cold calculation about power and self-interest. Now here is the part that makes this whole situation so explosive right now. Social media is absolutely on fire. YouTube is flooded with clips and analysis. Legal experts are breaking down exactly why these confessions are devastating for Trump's defense strategy. Fact-checkers are documenting the layers of lies that led to this moment. And the reason it is spreading so fast is not because of some coordinated conspiracy. It is because people can see with their own eyes what Trump said. They can hear the words coming out of his mouth. They can read the transcripts and compare them to his previous denials. And the gap between what he said then and what he is saying now is so wide that you cannot explain it away with the usual excuses. He was joking. He was taken out of context. The media is being unfair. None of that works when the evidence is right there in front of you. Let me talk about what this means for his legal team because I think people do not fully appreciate how impossible their job has become. Imagine you are a defense attorney. You have spent months building a strategy around the idea that your client genuinely believed something that turned out to be false. You have crafted arguments. You have prepared witnesses. You have mapped out exactly how you are going to convince a jury that your client acted in good faith. And then your client goes on camera and says, "Actually, I did not really believe that. I just did it because my feelings were hurt." What are you supposed to do with that? You cannot unring that bell. You cannot tell the jury to ignore the defendant's own words. You cannot argue that he did not mean what he clearly meant. All you can do is try to minimize the damage. Try to shift the focus. Try to convince the jury that one careless comment does not define the entire case. But juries are not stupid. They know that when a defendant admits his own motivation, that admission is about the most powerful evidence there is. And here is the other thing. Trump keeps doing it. This is not a one-time slip. This is a pattern that has been repeating itself for years. Every few months, sometimes every few weeks, Trump says something that makes his legal team collectively groan. He cannot help himself. He is constitutionally incapable of staying on message. He is temperamentally unable to follow the advice of his lawyers, and every time he opens his mouth, he creates new problems, new admissions, new contradictions, new evidence for prosecutors to use against him. At some point, you have to wonder if his lawyers have just given up. If they have accepted that their client is going to keep sabotaging himself and all they can do is watch and collect their fees, because there is no legal strategy in the world that can defend against a client who insists on confessing every time he gets in front of a camera. Now let me bring this all together because the big picture here is what really matters. The election confession, the Epstein admission, the pattern of rhetorical cover-ups. They are not isolated incidents. They are pieces of the same puzzle. They all point to the same underlying reality. Donald Trump has spent his entire public career constructing a version of himself that is not entirely true. He has hidden relationships. He has denied motivations. He has built elaborate narratives designed to make himself look better than he actually is. And those narratives are now collapsing, not because of some grand conspiracy or some deep state plot. They are collapsing because Trump himself cannot stop telling the truth by accident. He keeps confessing, he keeps slipping, he keeps saying the quiet part out loud, and every time he does, another piece of the facade falls away. The cover-up is blowing open right now in real time. You are watching it happen. The confessions are piling up faster than anyone can spin them. The contradictions are becoming too obvious to ignore. And the people who have spent years defending him, explaining away his statements, insisting that he did not really mean what he clearly meant, they are running out of excuses. They are running out of room. Because at some point, when someone keeps telling you who they are, you have to believe them. Trump has told us who he is. He has told us why he did what he did. He has admitted the motivations he spent years denying. And the only question left is whether we are going to pay attention or let the confessions get lost in the noise like so many before them. So what happens next? Trump will keep talking. That is guaranteed. He will keep rambling. He will keep making statements that his lawyers wish he would not make. And every single one of those statements will be clipped, shared, analyzed, and added to the growing pile of evidence. His legal team will keep trying to spin. They will keep insisting that he was misunderstood or taken out of context. But the pile keeps getting bigger. The weight keeps growing. And eventually, something has to give. Eventually, the cumulative effect of all these confessions becomes impossible to dismiss. Eventually, the pattern becomes so obvious that even his most loyal supporters start to wonder. That is the moment we are heading toward. That is the moment this story is building toward. Not a single smoking gun, not one dramatic confession that changes everything overnight, but a slow, steady accumulation of admissions and contradictions that eventually reaches a tipping point. The tipping point might be coming sooner than anyone expects, because right now, the confessions are not stopping. They are accelerating. Every week brings a new statement. Every interview creates a new headache for his defense team. And with the Epstein files still working their way through the legal system, with more documents scheduled for release, the pressure is only going to increase. More information means more context. More context means more contradictions. More contradictions mean more evidence that Trump has not been telling the truth. It is a cycle that feeds on itself. And the only way to break the cycle is for Trump to stop talking. But we all know that is never going to happen. So the cycle continues. The confessions keep coming. The cover-up keeps cracking. And we keep watching, waiting to see how much more the facade can take before the whole thing comes crashing down.